We are live. So, Dr. Travis Parry, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
This is a really important topic that you and I have been chatting about offline. We're going to have the conversation here, and you've actually now dedicated your life to it. And you wrote the wonderful book, Achieving Balance, and it is focused on financial advisors, financial planners, on using what you developed, the Make Time method, to help advisors reach business and personal goals in an overworked world. And we're going to chat about that last bit because I want to talk a bit about how did we get to this overworked world. But first, for those that don't know your story, can you share a bit about what took you on this path?
Yes, thank you. Appreciate that. Yeah, I think, I was a financial advisor and I was trying to manage my own time. My wife and I, we had two children. We just graduated college, is working in this, industry that I loved. I really did love it. And I wanted to be a planner. I loved helping people reach their goals. But the whole work nights and weekends until you make it was starting to get old. And I wanted to kind of prove that I could do it differently. So I got deep into productivity and read everything I could and tried to figure out how I could, show that I could be this incredible productive advisor without killing myself and have a life outside of work. And I began to do that. However, it just kind of compounded when I said, I'm going to leave my broker dealer. I'm going to go be my own business owner because it's the BD that's causing me all this stress. And as soon as you become your own business owner, it's like the logo, the accounts, the new tech, the startup. What was I thinking? Honestly, that's what I was thinking when I first went independent. I was like, what am I thinking? And this is back before so many cool online services were available. This is back in '07. And it really got me sideways so far that, I was losing sleep. I wasn't very healthy at all. I wasn't running or riding my bike. My wife and I were struggling a little bit. And there was a lot of things just going on that I wasn't able to focus on because of the business. I've got to build the business. Well, right about the same time, it all kind of happens in different time, but in my mind, about the same time, my father, 49 years old, was on a mountain bike ride, and he's a healthy guy, or so we had thought. But he died on that mountain bike ride from a heart attack, and they call it the Widowmaker because most people who die of heart attack develop heart disease, and they tend to be overweight. There's high blood pressure. There's all these other issues. Nothing with my dad ever. He was worried about cancer, but this came out of nowhere, and it really just surprised everyone, shocked our family.
Yeah.
And it got me really thinking, am I doing what I should be doing? If I only have 25 years left, because I was 26 at the time, if I had 24, 25 years left, what am I really doing with life? And that really brought me into a health, craze. And my wife and I were trying to figure out health, and we tried to figure out our relationships. That's the personal stuff we were talking about. We were making these huge changes, and the business went along with it.
Yeah. Wow. Well, I'm so sorry for your loss, and what a sudden shocker. And you and I were chatting about how, too often stuff like that does need to happen before people realize how to actually make these changes. And really, it's about making actual lifestyle changes. And it's not about the latest fad diet. It's not about cutting out sugar or carbs or just going, black and white on everything. And so I love that you call your book Achieving Balance. And in it, you talk about three myths that we're going to break down. And I love that you use threes, and we're going to talk about creating your top three priorities. And that's something I've been talking a lot about. I don't know where I got it, but it was probably 6 or 8 months ago. I just have had a mantra where I'm like, max of three. I will only work on 3 projects at a time. Every day, I just lay out 3 things to do that day. Just 3. So you've obviously studied all this. Is there a psychological component behind the number 3?
Yes, our brains are literally hardwired to remember 3 to 5 bits of information at a time, max. And, so if we're trying to focus on a bunch of different things at the same time, it's just not going to work. It's interesting. If you even look at our our telephone numbers, what do we have? We break it up in
Yeah.
3 in the United States, 3 3 4, right? Rarely will we go past fours, maybe sometimes five. But to remember those numbers, I usually have someone remember the first three, have someone else remember the second three, and I'll remember the last four, and we'll put it together, because you can remember in your short-term memory those 3 to 5 bits of information. So you're right on. And having that focus of 3 is really important. In the book, it really has 3 myths, and I boil those down and try to show why those are myths and really lies that have got us into this workaholic trap.
Yeah, and I'd say they are spot on, because I have like dedicated my at least last 18 months, probably the last 24 months, to figuring this out. And I am absolutely guilty. I hate to say it, time and again, of being the workaholic, the overworked person, stressed out. It's led to health issues, sleep issues. Just, I mean, we know, right? Nothing good comes of it. And
Right.
so I was like, I've got to figure it out. And as I was talking with people, and I even went to therapy and I talked with family members, and it felt like everything was just black and white. And my father was in the same company for 35 years. And he honestly, growing up till his very last day, he never ever started work before 9 a.m. And he actually worked from home even when I was a kid. He was a construction salesman, started at 9 a.m. And as soon as the clock turned 5 p.m., he was done. So he had this mentality of like, that's all you do. You give them your 40 hours. That's what you're paid for. But, I've started multiple businesses, and then being in other businesses in, executive or ownership roles, it feels like you have to put in those extra hours. That's that overworked world that we talk about. So I want to dive into the 3 myths, but in your research and everything, how did we get from, factory work of, hey, you've got your hours, you go, you show up, to this overworked world?
Technology.
It is,
Tech
right?
is great.
The thing
Tech is
we love and
wonderful.
hate.
Exactly. We love this and we hate it all at the same time. And it's because of the comfort of working from home or being able to be flexible. I'm away from my office. This is not my Michael Jordan pictures, although those are cool. And because of that, I can be flexible. I have internet connection. As long as it's stable, we can have conversations here, and I can continue to work for the time being. But we are gone from that society, and COVID was kind of the catalyst to bring this to full front. But I've been working from home since 2009, and realized that I can be so much more productive and efficient when I'm at home, as long as I create boundaries, right? And we'll talk about that. But that's one of the biggest things that I think people struggle with, is that they've allowed this flexibility that is so comfortable to now kind of overtake all of their life. And so, our phones become a segue to checking email and texting people on our team or whatever after hours, when we should be present and focused with the people that we proclaim to love.
Yeah. Well, France, you probably saw it a couple of years ago. They actually made it illegal to email your coworkers after office hours or on the weekends. They just
Oh man.
outright banned it. I was like, I want to move to
Interesting.
France. Because they realized the health toll that it was taking on society. And then you get into all of the other costs that puts and the burdens that it puts on society. So as we think about balance, your first myth is that, balance is doing it all at the same time.
Yeah, that's myth number 1, is that this old idea, it's really from the 1980s, is from what I've understood, is this idea of balance, of being in some kind of equilibrium in all the areas of our life. So when I talk to people about balance, one of their first things to me is like, Travis, I don't believe in balance. Like, that's cool. Tell me about it. I get it. Like, I've interviewed over 150 advisors, and a lot of them don't actually believe in that stoic, traditional 1980s version of balance. And I don't either, because it doesn't really provide balance. Balance is more of how you feel. That's what I've come to uncover. It's a feeling. And it usually comes because you are spending your time in your top 3 priorities. So power of 3. I love it. Love it. Love it. But those power of 3 is like the top 3 priorities in your life. You feel balanced because you are spending and are making time, hence the Make Time Institute, the name of the company. You're making time to be in those areas. Now, that doesn't mean you spend an equal amount or more in those areas. It's just that you have them and you are spending time in those areas, making time for them. Granted, we spend a lot of time at work. And I'm not saying you have to be a 4-hour work week person. Doesn't mean you can't shoot for that, but
Yeah.
I'm not there. But I will tell you this, I didn't spend more than 30 hours a week last year working during COVID while I was writing this book. I did that on purpose because I want to be a man of integrity and be able to stand before you and say, this didn't ruin my life. Like, I didn't go crazy out of balance because I had to help other people with balance. It'd be a little bit of hypocrisy. But I think a lot of people get stuck in that whole thing of balance is doing everything. No, it's working on your highest priorities in life.
Well, and with that, I love this. You talk about, 10 categories across life and focusing on, again, top 3, definitely getting a theme here. And you say in there that in 14 years of what you've been working on now, never once has someone, after going through the exercises that you recommend in your courses and in the book, never once has someone actually put career as their true number 1 priority.
Yes. And, and we were talking pre, the live portion of this event. And I've had people stand up in live crowds and tell me that, yeah, maybe career might be their number 1, but it's like 1% of the whole crowd. But I bet if I worked with them one-on-one and I could truly walk them through, I'd find that, or they would find that, oh, okay, maybe they think career needs to come first, like it's a logical progression. But if you ask yourself this golden question, if I could only have one, it would never be career. It wouldn't. People get into these careers to provide for themselves, for others, so usually, so that they can have fun, so they can be healthy, so they can have time to be with their family. And those are the priorities that time and time again, when I work with advisors and business owners, those are always top 3. It's physical health, spiritual health, relationship with family or spouse. Those are the top 3 or 4 I see every single time.
So why are so many advisors so overworked? And I personally know a ton of them that work 7 days a week, 10 hours a day. And when we think about it, I mean, people always ask me what I love about this profession. And to me, it's always been the fact that you can build your career around your life. And that's what I did when I started my prior financial planning business back in 2013. That was a completely virtual monthly retainer model before that was even a thing. And that's what I set out to do. I was like, I am going to, actually I didn't, clients just started pointing it out, but I was like, I am just not going to succumb to this 100-hour work week. And I was like, life is too short. And I realized that actually from talking with hundreds of clients and going into companies and just talking with everyday people that got into their 60s. And they were like, yeah, I've worked the last 30, 40 years, haven't done much. Don't know what I'm going to do next. And there was not like, exuberance about life and adventures that they've had. And they didn't seem fulfilled. And I was like, I don't want to feel that when I get to 60 or any age, actually. Even I didn't want to feel that when I hit 30.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and we were experiencing that same thing. Like, how could I be more productive? How can you not have that lifestyle that if you didn't get into the business for this? Most advisors get into this business for 3 main things: freedom, flexibility, finances.
And
yet they get stuck. And this is where I call this workaholic trap. I mean, if you put a hamster on a wheel, that's really what this is. It's like, yeah, I'm working, I'm productive. Well, the second myth is that once you have your priorities in order, if you just think that productivity is the end all be all, then the productivity is the magic pill, then that mentality of I just need to be more productive will kill you unless you have boundaries. And those boundaries come into play, and they're crucial. We talked about how technology, really helps us to be flexible, but those boundaries can really be important as long as you are, being productive every day, and what your work hours are. Like, you're talking about working 9 to 5 and just having that 40-hour work week. Well, set an ideal calendar. So what I have, advisors actually do, and they've heard this for years, it's nothing new. They just don't do it. They don't create an ideal calendar where they should spend their most productive time. They set an ideal calendar based on, well, this is how many hours I need to have clients in here, and when I need to do client prep, they just kind of go straight to this idea, this building up of their clientele and how can I serve them, and that's a good thing. But they don't tend to think what serves me best. And when I walk through and help advisors step by step create an ideal calendar, it really is about their highest priorities at work. And they should be spending 80 to 90% of their work hours doing the most productive things, like planning, like meeting with clients, like possibly networking or speaking or whatever it is that brings in those clients. But a lot of the time they are doing paperwork, answering email correspondence, getting back to clients on little details. Like those are $15 to $25 an hour activities, maybe 50 max, but you're worth $500 an hour. And that's a slap in the face when people see those numbers and they let it, they calculate that all up and they go, gee, I am not putting my time where it needs to be. Exactly. So you need to create that ideal work week, that ideal calendar, and then create boundaries so that you can leave work and actually disconnect.
Yeah, because you have a great line there that says productivity without boundaries creates a more productive workaholic. And Travis, I will admit, I laughed out loud when I read that because that hit home a little bit.
It's so true though. I had a client, his name is Jeff, and he's a mortgage guy, and they were killing it. They were like 1,800% in revenue up from the month before, just destroying things. But after I went through and did some training with them, he kind of looked at me and was like, Travis, I am so productive now. I'm actually tempted to continue to stay here and work. And I was like, no, Jeff, there's something wrong. What did I do? Like, I created a monster. So this third myth is exactly what comes next. And I think this is where I just need to keep working on personal development. This is myth number 3, is that personal development is the end all be all. I'll be productive. I'll manage my time. And then, I'll work on my, personal development goals. What I found is that while this is a good start, if you involve your spouse and you get your family to help you, if you're a workaholic, why are we not treating this like anything else on the DSM-5 as any sort of other addiction? You're addicted to work. Let's be honest. But we just wear it as a badge of courage. And so society doesn't condone it. And neither does our work cultures a lot of times at work, unless they really are focused on balanced, lifestyle culture, which is starting to become more of a thing. But reality is you've got to blaze that trail, and you've got to have your family on board to help you so you don't go back. And very specifically, those who are married, your spouse is going to be your best teammate. They're going to help you be honest. They're going to help you to keep that time that you set as your ideal calendar. And when you do that, then you can, outside of work, be excited about those fun and rec activities, about, your personal, development time, your individual health goals, your time with your family. And when those things become so enjoyable, then you're so much less likely to go back and become a workaholic and fall right back into that workaholic trap.
Yeah. And I just want to acknowledge, as I said in the beginning, I've been spending, really like at least a year and a half fully dedicated to this. I quit my last job with absolutely no idea what was next because I was stuck in that workaholic trap. I could not for the life of me figure out how to create boundaries. You get this like, oh, but I have to do it. And I found the more I worked, the more work there was to do, which really was frustrating. And so I was like, I just have to leave because this isn't working. And I was like, I don't know what's going to work, but this isn't. And I was like, I've got to figure this out. And in the last few months, especially, we just moved to Florida 2 months ago. And I told my husband, I said, okay, when we move to Florida, he's gone 16 days at a time, and then he's home for 12. And I was like, good. So now I've got 16 days. I'm going to work hard. I was like, and I absolutely promised him, I said, from noon on Fridays, the 2 weekends a month you're home, until 9 a.m. Monday, I will not touch my computer. And I was like, and it was fascinating. Last week was probably the first real week. And it was so interesting to me as I went through the week, knowing, I was like, no matter what, I'm done at noon on Friday. I was like, either things are done or they're not. Like, knowing in my brain that I was like, I can't be like, oh, well, I'll do this on Saturday or I'll sneak it in there. I was like, I can't. I promised my husband I wouldn't. and I started saying no to things and the way that I prioritized things. And I did actually become more efficient because I was like, this has to get done. It can't just be this never ending, infinite amount of time. And so it was so interesting when I was reading your book and you talk about that. That's the, like you said, the focus of that third myth is on, have your spouse, a relationship. For some people, it might be a best friend. And yeah, he holds me accountable. And it's amazing.
Yeah, it's crucial. It's definitely crucial. I've seen some, comments come in on the chat. It's
Yeah.
exactly right. When you have that structure, it will create those boundaries. And you've got to have a really good time management system that can help with those boundaries so that then you can keep each other accountable. And it goes both ways. It's not a whip cracking contest. This is very much when you're happily married and you have a good relationship, you want each other to be excited about life, to achieve your goals. It helps both of you. It helps the whole family. And that's why I did a PhD in family relations, is I wanted to see, is this just my wife and I? Like, did we just like stumble upon this on our own? But no, I found that through my dissertation work that no, it's when couples have the same values and goals, they're going the same direction, they're much more likely to achieve their individual health, their relationship, and financial goals. Very logical, right? But it needed to be said. It needed to be discovered. And that's what I bring out as a very, systematic process, that if you spend an hour a week with your spouse and say, hey, this is what we're doing this week. Here's our calendars. Keep me accountable for that. I'm going to be home on time for dinner, and those kinds of things. And then work on your goals together. Oh my goodness, we're now unleashing the power of that relationship. Now, people ask me all the time, well, what if you're not married? What if you don't have the relationship? Fine. I just interviewed a guy before this. He said, great, have another family member, a business partner, somebody keep you accountable. And it's likely that most people will get married. Even those who divorce want to remarry. It's just what the stats show us. So it can be done. You can, make this work to have someone in your personal life help keep you accountable. And that's the key.
Oh yeah, like I said, even if it's a best friend, make sure you've got the time to go to the gym together or do happy hour or whatever it is, and you don't say no to that. And the other thing you and I were chatting about is, the fact that the best part about financial planning is that, financial planners should be out there helping clients figure out what their top 3 priorities are. What are their goals? Where do they want to be spending the most time in life? And then helping them create the financial plan to get there. But we tend to like not actually put the oxygen mask on ourselves first. We put it on everyone else. And so that's why, you and I really connected and are so passionate about this. Is, to me, that is the best part of this profession. And we need the financial planners to be the example. And if they have clients that are workaholics and that aren't spending time on the things they love, there's that great quote of, most people spend their health to gain their wealth, and then spend their wealth to regain their health. We don't need that to perpetuate. We need to stop that.
No, and you're exactly right. I mean, this is part of the workaholic trap, is the culture, society, the culture of the business, the society, but also this perpetual idea that we can somehow be more productive on our own instead of having this accountability and having these boundaries that kind of slip us back in. I've seen people that got a really great time management system and they were honing it in. I used to work for a coach who worked for the E-Myth author, Michael Gerber. And I learned a lot of my time management skills from him. And, I watched people 90 days later as I came back to see what they were doing and realized they'd already fallen off the wagon again. And that's when, I come to figure out that when couples are working on this together, they're unstoppable. They really are. And it is the secret sauce. But society kind of poo-hoos this idea because, especially, and this is, a show for an international audience, but in America, we have this rugged individualism, and rugged individualism founded the country, but it's also kind of had a backlash into consumerism, into, just me only. And if we're not careful, that's actually what big problem is for marriage, is that when we're so focused on ourselves that we start to break apart, we start to grow apart, develop apart. And by the time people are in their 50s and 60s and their kids are gone, they have a spike in divorce. We call it gray divorce, because
Yep.
this whole time their only goal was to make sure the kids are successful. Then they look at each other and go, well, who are you? I don't know. Who are you? And it's like, well, they either have to, somehow get together again, or, they split ways.
Yeah, and that was, a lot of what I was mentioning earlier. All those conversations that I had, I used to specialize in going into companies, and I talked to everyone from rank and file to the executives and business owners, and it was that conversation over and over again. They'd be heading into retirement. I was like, "What do you want to do?" And they're like, "I don't know, but we stayed together and had this job because we had kids and a mortgage." They were like, "Now I don't really like my job. Not sure I like my spouse. Don't really want to still live here." It's like, okay, there's got to be another path through life than this. But Travis, the other thing we see is this whole idea of like millennials are lazy, right? As we talk about work-life balance or not wanting to work 100 hours a week, then some people are like, oh, well, you're not willing to put in what it takes to be successful. And that's really, really dangerous.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and we got people like Elon Musk who says unless you're working 90-hour weeks to get your perfect idea out there to the world, like you're not working hard enough. I think that's one of the most destructive messages,
Yep.
because I think that is the rugged individualism that has permeated our society. And thanks, Johan, for bringing that up. And that is it's a perfect way to look at this. Is you can be incredibly successful outside of your home. But if your number one priority is to have an amazing, relationship at home, then it doesn't matter anything that you do outside. It'll never compensate for failure in the home. And I think that is an important principle that at our core, we came here in pods. We call them families, regardless of, how that was, regardless of the circumstances. This is how, we're in this experience together. And there's something we need to learn from each other, and to work toward these goals together is really, I think, a healing balm for our body right now.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Travis, in the last few minutes, we've shown the book. We'll show it again. Pop on. You can get it on Amazon, right?
Get on Amazon, or you can go to my website. Amazon sells it for $15.99. You can go to my website and get it for just paying the shipping for $8.99 for the time being.
Incredible.
Yeah. So if you go to achievingbalancebook.com, you can get it right now. And you can also pre-order the audio, because when I get back from this trip, all of May, I'm going to get the audio book ready to rock and roll. So that'll be out by June 1st.
Okay. So if people want to get some exercise, get some fresh air, enjoy, well, here in the Northern Hemisphere, heading into summertime, then they can get that while learning to achieve balance. And like I said, I read it. There were so many things that really hit home, and it's something I wish I had had years ago to bust those myths, because I've gone through all of that. I mentioned earlier I went to therapy. I was trying to do that personal development thing. I signed up for, Stephen Covey productivity things. I've
Sure.
probably got loads of books on my bookshelf, and it took me hitting a wall more few times and realizing I couldn't continue life like this to find another way. So thank you for what you're doing. I hope we can continue to inspire more financial planners and advisors around the world. I know we've got a few great ones that are along the same thinking as us here in the chat. So
sure.
How else can people contact you? Is everything on that website?
Yeah, they can reach me there. They can go to travisparry.com with an A, P-A-R-Y, Travis Parry. And you can hire me to speak, or you can connect with me there, or on LinkedIn. I'm on LinkedIn a lot. So you LinkedIn users love it. Connect me to me and follow my stuff. I try to get something out every single day that's helpful. That will really bring the balance out. We're going to have a lot of things moving forward. We're going to have a summit. We're going to have a lot of other ways to connect and to kind of move this movement forward of achieving balance.
Yeah, wonderful. Do you have any final thoughts for advisors trying to, maybe they're in that, obviously in that workaholic trap and still believing all these myths that are so easy to fall into?
Yeah, I think to tie it back into something that you mentioned earlier, we're so good about helping our clients, aren't we? It's all about this client experience. So think of yourself as your number one client. When you treat yourself as good or better than your own clients, that's when you realize that you're achieving balance. And I give you permission to do that. Like, people always ask, can I get permission? Like, you have permission. Like, give yourself
Yeah.
that permission. And usually the reason why they don't do it is they fear something. They fear failing, or they fear actually having success or more success than they have currently. And that is a subconscious block or limiting belief that I help people uncover through what I call the Make Time Discovery call. So if you're interested in that, contact me. Happy to schedule that for you. It's usually something I charge, but if your audience, I'm happy to, do that for no
Wow.
charge, to just spend 45 minutes, 60 minutes to walk through that whole process and see where you're actually getting stuck. So that's something you need to apply for. Achievingbalancebook.com will have more information, or reach out to me on LinkedIn. Happy to offer that. I love helping people, and I'm only as good as I take care of my own self. So I have to achieve my own sense of balance so that I can be here for you guys. And it's a really good way to treat yourself like that number one client, so that you can be that great of a person to your own clients.
Yeah. What an incredible offer. Thank you so much, Travis. Thank you for being here today. And everyone, go grab a copy of that book. Like I said, the fact that you can just get it for the cost of shipping from your website, that's amazing. It's a wonderful read. Or wait a couple weeks and get the audiobook. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Kate.